and welcome to this briefing covering some of the key aspects of defence trade in the Gulf region. Today we'll be using a number of Jane's products, such as Jane's Defence Budgets and Markets Forecast, as well as our data analytics tools to show how our subscribers can uncover key market trends and characteristics. Using data gathered from our Markets Forecast product, we are able to use some of our data analytics tools further to explore the types of equipment being imported and by which country. Overall, the region imported almost $84 billion worth of equipment between 2013 and 2018, peaking at approximately $15.3 billion in 2018. Broadly, Saudi Arabia remains the largest importer of military equipment in the region, with Jane's tracking an estimated $45 billion in imports during the period, representing 53.5% of the region's total. Looking at the region overall, we see that the military aviation sector is the largest one at 30.5% of the total market and valued at over $30 billion US. Within this sector, fixed-wing aircraft dominated imports. In the 2013 to 2018 period, this can be down to the procurement of a range of platforms, including the Boeing F-15 Saudi Advanced Eagle for Saudi Arabia, as well as Eurofighter Typhoons for Oman and Saudi Arabia. Similarly, force multiplier and enabler aircraft, like the Airbus military A330 MRTT tanker transport, have also played a significant role in the market's dominance. The C4ISR market was the next largest during the period, led by the radar subsystems market, notably aircraft radars, at 8.42% of the total market import and valued at over $7 billion, followed by electro-optic infrared systems, valued at over $5 billion, and military communications, command and control technology, primarily for ground-based air defence, both valued at over $3 billion US each. The third largest market was in missiles and precision-guided munitions, valued at over $15.7 billion for the period, and primarily driven by the ground-based air defence requirements of the nations in the region. Key systems acquired by regional operators during this period included the Terminal High Altitude Area Defence System and Lockheed Martin's PAC-3 Patriot system. The ground vehicle market was valued at over $13 billion for the period and was largely driven by procurements from the UAE and Oman for ground-based air defence vehicle systems, Saudi Arabia's LAV procurement, and Qatar's acquisition of main battle tanks. Within the other category, there has been an interesting presence in the simulation and spacecraft segments as operators work on improving training, ISR and communications capabilities. Saudi Arabia is the largest importer in the region, sourcing almost $45 billion worth of equipment during the period. Of its imports, fixed-wing aircraft remain the largest contributor to the country's imports, with subsystems such as aircraft radars representing around 3% of total imports for the period, and airborne electro-optic systems valued at 5% of total imports. Looking at the level of imports as a whole, we can see here the changes in imports during the oil price collapse, which peaked at 2015 before declining as procurements were pushed to the right. As some of the programs move into the delivery phase, we can expect to see the figures for 2019 and beyond trend upwards. Looking briefly now at the source of imports for the region. North America remains dominant in the Gulf market, with the US accounting for 52.2% of imports during the 2013 to 18 period, and Canada with 5.4% of the market. Key exports from the US included fixed-wing aircraft, missiles and precision-guided weapons, and C4ISR equipment, while Canada's most notable exports were in the ground vehicle sector. The UK was the second largest exporter to the region during the period, with fixed-wing aircraft exports, primarily work on the Eurofighter Typhoon and BAE Systems Hawk, leading the country's export drive. Subsystems such as airborne radars also significantly contributed to the market value. France, the third largest supplier, accounted for 8% of the total market, with the C4ISR market segment accounting for the largest part of its exports. Key areas include electro-optics and infrared systems, as well as military communications equipment and radar systems, with all three sectors being valued at over $500 million each. Missile systems, notably air defence and naval anti-ship systems, were also significant contributors to the country's export profile. Despite concerns about Chinese and Russian penetration of the market, levels of sales to the Gulf countries still remain low. China accounted for approximately $1.2 billion in the period, mostly centred on unmanned aircraft and associated equipment, as well as advanced rocket artillery systems. Similarly, Russian exports have hinged on some specialist technology offerings in areas such as anti-tank missiles and man-portable air defence systems. However, while the region remains a significant importer, some capabilities are being grown and enhanced. Notable manufacturers and developers include the UAE's Nimmer and Abu Dhabi Shipbuilding Company, both of which have undertaken work for both the UAE and regional operators, and Saudi Arabia's Armoured Vehicles and Heavy Equipment Factory, which manufactures the Al-Shibal 1 and 2 protected mobility vehicles. Further plans for manufacture include the Antonov AN-132D in the kingdom, which will be used for commercial and military operations. For Saudi Arabia, the growth of domestic defence production capabilities is part of the country's Vision 2030 plan, which aims to increase domestic defence procurement expenditure from 2% to 50% through the growth of local capabilities.